Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolutely epic story of disruption. We're going to uncover exactly how one underdog tech company pulled off a rapid market valuation that literally eclipsed the combined worth of the world's most established legacy automakers. Think about that for a second. We live in a world where almost every major car company on Earth is being forced to completely abandon the gasoline engines they've been perfecting for decades. A world where these completely silent electric cars are suddenly stepping up and defeating million-dollar supercars in raw speed. I mean, this isn't science fiction, right? This is the story of a massive paradigm shift that changed the future of transportation forever.
So how did they pull it off? Let's break down exactly how this happened, because the odds they faced were seemingly impossible. For decades, giant legacy companies out of Detroit, Tokyo, and Stuttgart had absolutely dominated the automotive world. We're talking sprawling factories, billions of dollars in the bank, and generations of mechanical manufacturing experience. But, they also operated on a very traditional, very slow 5 to 7 year product development timeline. So against that kind of entrenched power, how on earth could a small group of engineers with almost none of those resources trigger a global revolution? Well, the answer lies in how a software-minded approach managed to drastically outpace a century of mechanical dominance.
Section 1. The Impossible Electric Dream, Breaking the Status Quo.
To really understand this epic disruption, we've got to look back at how bleak the landscape used to be for electric vehicles just a few short years ago. Most people assumed gasoline engines would just dominate forever. The early EVs that did exist, they were widely considered weak, slow, impractical, and let's be honest, pretty ugly. Legacy automakers literally laughed at the idea that these vehicles could ever become a realistic option for your average driver. But this startup walked in with a radically different vision. They set out to prove that driving an electric vehicle didn't have to be a compromise. They genuinely believed an EV could be fast, luxurious, powerful, and incredibly exciting, completely upending how the public thought about electric cars.
Section 2. Breaking the automotive rules. The visionary catalyst. Now let's look at the turning point, which all started with an incredibly ambitious, world-changing goal. You see, this wasn't just about building cars to make a quick profit, it was a deeply mission-driven initiative. Soon after the company was founded, Elon Musk joined and poured millions of his own dollars into the project. His stated mission was brilliantly simple but massively ambitious: to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. But let me tell you, building a car company from scratch is notoriously brutal. They faced unbelievably low funding, severe production failures, and just relentless criticism from industry experts who were absolutely certain the company would collapse. To even have a fighting chance in those early days, they had to literally force massive technical breakthroughs into existence, specifically pioneering high-performance battery power and radically improving electric motor efficiency. They simply refused to give up.
And walking through their timeline perfectly highlights the shockwave this sent through the legacy boardrooms in Detroit and Tokyo. In 2003, against all conventional wisdom, a group of engineers founded the company. Just 5 years later, in 2008, they launched their first car, the Roadster, and the world was stunned. This wasn't some slow, boring golf cart. The Roadster was unbelievably fast, going head-to-head with elite sports cars while producing absolutely zero emissions. For the very first time, electric cars were undeniably cool. But the real revolution hit in 2012 with the release of the Model S. Going from a founding idea in 2003 to an industry-shifting luxury car in 2012 completely shattered that traditional 5 to 7 year manufacturing timeline. The Model S took advanced technology, huge battery range, and unbelievable acceleration and combined it all into one futuristic package that fundamentally changed the industry standard.
Section 3. A tech company disguised. The Silicon Valley Playbook.
Suddenly, traditional car companies realized something very, very dangerous. This tiny startup was entirely serious. Against heavily funded, highly experienced giants, they survived and thrived by completely changing the rules of the game. They weren't behaving like a traditional car manufacturer at all. They were acting exactly like a Silicon Valley tech company. Rather than just focusing on bending metal, they prioritized software, artificial intelligence, and battery innovation. And this is exactly why Wall Street began to value them so uniquely. By treating the car like a tech product, one capable of over-the-air or OTA software updates and driven by AI, investors valued them like a high-growth software company. This completely separated their valuation model from the traditional, low-margin metal benders of the past. They went all in on this tech-first approach, and the market rewarded them immensely.
Section 4. Smart Devices on Wheels. The Autopilot Revolution.
This whole technology-first mindset culminated in a specific feature that completely redefined the modern driving experience: I'm talking about Autopilot, a system that allows their cars to stay in their lanes, apply brakes automatically, and even navigate autonomously in specific situations. But the real magic here was the psychological shift it created for consumers. Cars were no longer just mechanical machines you bought to get from point A to point B. They were continuously evolving smart devices that actually improved over time after you bought them. When a software update literally gave your car new capabilities overnight, it made traditional vehicles instantly feel like they were decades behind.
That massive technological leap forces us to look at the sheer arrogance of early industry skepticism compared to the current reality of market dominance. Look, traditional automakers started at step 1, laughing at the very idea of EVs. But as that rapid innovation cycle continued, we hit step 2, the sudden realization that this startup was a highly disruptive threat, which very quickly led to step 3, utter panic. The same manufacturers who once mocked electric vehicles realized they were suddenly a decade behind in software architecture and battery supply chains. And finally, step 4, desperate action. Today, almost every major car company is frantically racing toward an electric future, pouring billions into EV development solely because their hand was forced. They had to evolve significantly faster than they ever planned.
Section 5. The Global EV War. Surviving the Revolution.
But, being the catalyst for a global revolution is an incredible achievement. It also paints a massive target on your back. To maintain their lead, they must now navigate some intense, professional-grade market risks. And these are risks that retail investors, who are currently pricing the stock for absolute perfection, need to watch very closely. First up is the specific threat of global competition. We're seeing cheaper, highly scaled manufacturing from rising international brands, especially out of Asia, that aggressively threaten current market leadership. Second, there's the absolutely critical role of battery innovation. Whoever masters battery production costs and secures that raw supply chain at a massive global scale will ultimately win this war. And third, they continually have to navigate the frequent controversies surrounding their highly visible CEO, Elon Musk. The landscape is no longer an open playing field. It is fiercely contested.
So this brings us to a really crucial question about the future of this epic disruption. They successfully transformed electric cars from a totally niche experiment into the undeniable future of transportation. But disrupting an industry from the outside is an entirely different game than defending the throne once the giants have fully awoken. Now that legacy automakers are throwing billions into the ring and scaling their massive factories, can the pioneer maintain its crown?
I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. One fact is simply impossible to deny. The automotive industry was permanently changed forever. The hand of the giants was forced, and now the entire world is following the electric path. But the next decade of transport, it's going to be a ruthless battle of survival. As the dust settles, we're faced with a stark choice. Will the pioneer stay ahead through relentless software innovation and AI, or will the legacy giants and those aggressive new global competitors crush them with sheer manufacturing scale? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I'll let you think on that fascinating question until next time.